You're watching Buzz with Jesse Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jesse Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. I'm excited to have my in-studio guest tonight, Karlo Dizon, Democratic candidate to the office of delegate to Washington. Believe that? 27 years young. I tell you, but I'm reading your resume, Karlo. You've got quite an impressive resume from Yale University to London School of Economics. You got together. I was just telling you earlier, I said, this is pedigree stuff.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you for joining me in the studio tonight. Tell the folks about Karlo Dizon and what was the impetus. You're 27 years old at this point. You qualified to run 2 years ago.
Yes, that's right.
Being 25, right, to be able to run. What was the impetus for Karlo wanting to jump in there, and as most folks going up against the big guns?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, we've spoken a lot to the community, and the primary thing that we took away was that there was a need for change. There was a need for a new representation in DC. And for me personally, a lot of people have asked me, you know, you have this experience nationally, you have this experience internationally, you know, why don't you try to use that experience to help our community back home? And so for me, this is a way of doing that. It's a way of implementing what I've done in China or in DC to represent us in the national stage.
Now, I'm sure you're gonna have your critics, like everyone does have the critics. You're like, well, wait a minute, why didn't you start off as being a senator, you know, and then work yourself up? I mean, you've got years ahead of you to be able to do that, and definitely you're going up against an icon, basically. But why now? Why now? Why could you wait a few years? Because things maybe you get more gusto under yourself and all that. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, and I think the need transcends beyond myself. You know, personally, I do understand that professionally people might have questions, but I think fundamentally the issue is with how things are now. I think we stand at a unique point in our history where our economy is weak. We have high unemployment rates and record high unemployment rates. And I felt compelled that something needed to be done. And personally, you know, my background has specifically been in politics nationally, internationally, and this is precisely what we want in our delegate. We want someone who has experience dealing not just with leaders in DC, but across the world as well.
Now, let me ask you this as well, because of the fact that our I mean, as much as we want to label somebody the congressperson from Guam, they're really not a congressman or a congresswoman. They're a delegate. They're a delegate to Congress as a member of Congress. And just recently, actually, our delegate's position, I mean, the committee vote was taken away. So basically, in essence, you have a weaker delegate at this point, regardless of who's there. It's weaker. What makes Karlo think that fact is, if you should prevail, that you would still go in, basically, if the Republicans continue to prevail and become again the majority, you probably still won't have a committee vote. Okay, so going in there, you won't have a vote. You won't be able to trade votes. So what gives Karlo the ammunition to be able to go in there and say, hey, well, wait a minute, wait a second, you know, things are going to change now, when really your status as a non-voting member to Congress and even in committee will not change.
Yeah, I think that's precisely why we need a strong voice. When we don't have a vote, this is precisely why our representative in Washington has to be stronger. And you know, when people talk about my background, they talk about my education or having worked at the Parliament or at the White House, what that really means is that this is something that I will bring to the table that will be respected and will be valued in DC. You know, DC is a very complicated place, and they place a lot of value on things like where you went to school or who you know. And for me, this is
that's reality.
It is, and I think we might disagree with that, right? But that's how politics is, and that's what I bring to the table. And I think that especially when we don't have a voting seat, we especially need someone who has a strong voice, because that's our biggest tool, that's our biggest weapon, and that's exactly what we need at this time.
Now, being a Democrat, should Obama again prevail? Should he prevail in this election, and should you prevail again? The fact also, you worked on the Obama campaign, did you not? For his first election, right? You worked on his campaign on the Guam side, right?
And in Iowa.
In Iowa, okay. So you worked his campaign. What would that do alongside, again, your education? And of course, that's reality. As much as people want to say, hey, well, really, that's not real. Where you went to school, and, you know, the old boys club, basically, you know, that's alive and well in Washington. And again, Yale, there are a lot of Yale grats. they got to stick together, right? Harvard as well. But would that give you the fact that you were a part of a campaign, of an Obama campaign? Would that give you, again, a heads up in the again, on the administration side, and how would that transcend again in the Congress side?
Sure. You know, whoever wins this election will have to work with the White House, and you know, my experience with the White House was something that you know, was especially unique. It was something that I am proud for having done. But I think more importantly, my focus would be on how to utilize that experience to helping our community. And when this seat especially requires someone who can interact not just with Congress but with the White House as well. You know, for example, our appropriations has to go to the president before it's approved. That's something I would bring to the table.
Yeah, no, actually earlier today, in the news today, the Senate Appropriations Committee, which I think Senator Inoue leads up, 2013 budgeting for the military side in Guam has been is all but zero. Now, of course, Guam is a competitor to Hawaii. You have two very powerful, you know, ingrained senators there. How will, again, Karlo Dizon master his way through this, to work through again those blocks, those walls, that because now Guam is a big competitor to Hawaii. But I tell you, hold on, we're going to take a quick break and answer after the break, okay? We'll be right back.
Jesse Lujan.
Hey, we're back. Karlo Dizon is my in-studio guest. Karlo is, if you don't already know, is a Democrat candidate to the delegate to Congress position. Karlo, let me ask you this. In the past few days, we, of course, what's been making news is, of course, between the legislative side and, of course, with the administration in regards to lobbying efforts. Someone who's been an insider in Washington, D.C., you see how lobbying and how lobbyists work in Washington, D.C. Your take, your view on, again, the group that recently, or has been actually been active in trying to pursue the military buildup outside of the government bureaucracy.
Yeah, I think what was striking about this discussion so far has not been who has made the comments, but who hasn't. The Congresswoman is on island, and this is precisely what her role entails. It entails she is our interface between our community and the federal government, and specifically with this buildup, which is of utmost importance and is in everyone's minds. I don't understand why this lobbying group has to feel the need to spend $20,000 to go to DC when they can spend 20 minutes going to Adelup and Oregania and meet with our congressman and voice their concerns. So I think this is a testament to one, either the lack of desire to insert into this discussion from the congresswoman's ends, or two, an inability to deal with the things that need to be dealt with. And I think this is precisely the type of inaction that a lot of people are tired of, and that's exactly what we are trying to tap into in terms of our.
Now she said, actually, the news reports have said that she endorsed the private sector's lobbying efforts of trying to get this. And I mean, I can understand that point of view. In a sense, it's like, you know, if I can't do it alone, I mean, Karlo, can you help me? And can we get other people to help? I mean, I can understand that point of view. But in what you're trying to say basically is that, wait a minute, that's your role. That's your role.
Exactly.
And we understand your position. We understand you're not voting at this point. And then if you're needing the community to come back to support you, then ask the community. So is that basically?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, that's even more striking with the fact that she actually supports their comments. If she does support what they are saying and what they are pushing for, then why has the office not made that argument themselves? and the delegate seat is the position through which these concerns should be heard, and this is the seat we have, the elected seat we have to make these points to the rest of the
But in general, do you have a problem with lobbying and lobbyist efforts?
No, and you know, lobbying efforts span the spectrum of political ideology, and span the spectrum of issues. My concern is that this should be the delegate seat's role. It is precisely this type of issue that the delegate seat should be concerned with. And in terms of the private sector colluding to push this issue through, I think, you know, we support the build-up in the context of the economic benefits that it brings to the island. And I fully understand that the business community's concerns that through every twist and turn, changes were made in the decisions to pursue with the build-up without consulting with any preparations made with the local community or any concerns we have had locally. And so I do understand that this is something that needs to be pushed forward. My concern is the lack of action by our delegates in terms of you know, how this would benefit our community and how it would benefit our business community.
Now, let me ask you this before the break. I asked you about the situation that just broke, the news that just broke in regards to the Senate Appropriations Committee has pretty much zeroed out the budgeting, the funding for our military spending here on Guam for 2013. And of course, you got two strong, powerful, ingrained senators from Hawaii that, okay, looks at Guam, views Guam basically as against competition. How would you maneuver through those giants?
I think, you know, it's not an issue of maneuvering, and I think for the longest time we have seen ourselves as subservient, either to Hawaii or to the mainland U.S. If elected, I would want this delegate seat to be a seat that is no less effective, no less powerful than any other seat in Congress. Yes, you might not have a vote, but that doesn't mean that their interests should not be heard. And the Congresswoman, you know, as much as I respect her, I think has operated in the pretext that we are an island that is beholden to decisions made on the federal level. And that's precisely what we want to change. And people comment and criticize on my youth, but I think that is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to cultivate relationships in coming years. It's an opportunity to present an energy and a drive to actually assert our voice on the national level. And, you know, when people talk about my background in terms of White House or Parliament, you know, I have had experience with dealing with officials in not just the national but international scale as well. And I think the fundamental thing that I've taken away from that is that there's nothing about where I am from, Guam, that is fundamentally different from anyone.
And you've got foreign policy background as well with that.
Sure, yeah, and experience in China. And I think it's just, it really is the thing that, I think when people look at my background and when they talk about my experience, I think it's the idea that we can make a difference in the national stage, and that's what we want to get to see.
When I come back, I'm going to ask you about how you feel of a political self-determination and maybe strengthening the position of delegate to maybe congressman, right? We'll be right back.
Thanks.